Right. Get out my agenda. So I am calling this meeting to order. It is 6:02 p.m. and I'm going to do a roll call of the committee members for the purpose of the recording. So when I call your name, please say present. Mike Allen.
Present.
Thank you. Tim Callahan.
Present.
Thank you. Scott Craighead is absent. Steve Nyadek is absent. Oh, Tom Keene's supposed to be here too. I forgot about Tom. He's running late. Tom Keene is not present yet. Jose Aromi is on his way. Nate Rex.
Present.
Sarah Roy present. Mary Streeto. Present. All right. And also present at the meeting, we have Tanner Thompson from the Norwalk Bike and Pedestrian Commission, Santina Duranco from the Fairfield Public Health Department, and Chris Herman, a member of the public. So, no, I don't need to see that right now. I'm going to start with the minutes. Because this is a special meeting, we are not allowed to vote on the minutes, but I want to acknowledge Mary and say thank you for doing a great job with the minutes from May. And Nate is going to take the minutes this month. He won the raffle.
Check the definition of win.
Yeah. Oh, it's a win because you're going to know this meeting so well, Nate. And so I was going to ask Tom, who's supposed to be here, if he wants to do July or August, since Tom and Steve have not won the raffle yet. So Tim, for your benefit, we don't have a regular secretary. No one was interested in that position, so we take turns. We pick names out of a hat. I'm not going to put you and Jose into the hat until we do the hat for September. Okay, so I want to give you a chance to get a couple of meetings under your belt before making you take notes. So we'll revisit the Tom thing and see which one he wants to do, and whatever one he doesn't want to do, we'll give to Steve. So those of you who've been here before know that I like to start every meeting with a welcome, an introduction, and icebreaker. And so I want to first welcome our newest member, Tim Callahan, to the committee. And Tim, would you like to say a couple of words about who you are, your background, and why you wanted to join the committee, just briefly?
Well, obviously I live in Fairfield. We've lived here for 25 years. And prior to that, my wife and I grew up and lived in Bridgeport. I'm pretty much retired now. Prior to retiring, I was the health director in Norwalk for 25 years. I had the pleasure of working with Santina.
Gave me my start in COVID.
That's so exciting. That's awesome.
We lost her to Fairfield. Fairfield fans, for sure. And while I was there, the bike walk committee got started. And one day I was talking to Harry Rilling, the mayor, and asked him if I could get involved because they were making his life crazy. So he said, go for it. And so I did, and we got pretty organized. We got a strategic plan, moved it along. Eventually, I believe it became an actual ordinance committee of the town. So it was fun. And I believe that cycling is part of public health because physical activity, lifestyles are important, and making it safe for people is a good idea, especially for biking and for walking. So,
Good. Thanks, Tim.
And I bike a lot.
Thank you. Well, we will embarrass Jose and make him do an introduction to you when he gets here. He's running a little late from the airport. So I like to do an icebreaker at the start of every meeting, as those of you who've been here before know. And so I'd like us to go around the room and say your name, either your neighborhood or your association with a commission or department.
I wouldn't mind getting a little more background on everybody, just because I haven't met anybody before. If that's all right.
Yeah, why don't we do that as part of the icebreaker?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And then the icebreaker question that you'll finish with is, how long would you last in a zombie apocalypse? So I'll start because Tanner and I know each other, so I can be quick. My name is Sarah Roy. I'm the chair of the committee. I live in the Stratfield Village neighborhood, and I'm a lifelong biker, pedestrian, interested in active mobility, and that's what brought me to the committee. Is I was always shouting from the rooftops about our pedestrian and cycling issues, and a former member said, why don't you join? So how long would I last in a zombie apocalypse? I'm in pretty good shape cardio-wise, so I think as long as they truly are slow, I could outrun them. But if you really have to kill them with guns, I've never shot a gun, so I don't know, self-defense-wise, how well I would do. So, Mike, so that I don't forget you, we're going to go to you next. If you could say who you are, where you live, maybe how long you've been on the committee and your interest, and then how long you'd last in a zombie apocalypse.
Okay. Pardon me. So I'm Mike Allen. I live off of South Pine Creek, just 2 blocks south of Route 1. I lived in Fairfield for 27 years. Pretty avid cyclist, and lately been doing a ton of walking, which helped me lose 15 pounds since January. So feeling good about that. And how long would I do in the? I think I do pretty well. I'm good about kind of storing things and being conservative with resources. And if we're following Walking Dead rules, yeah, I'm pretty good I know my way around firearms, so I could be handy there. And yeah, I think I do quite well.
Awesome. Well, Jose has just joined us for the recording. Jose Romy is here. Jose, we are going to, I start each meeting with a welcome and introduction and an icebreaker. And so to give you a sense of what we're doing, we'll have Nate go next. But Tanner is our special guest tonight from Norwalk. And so he asked that we give a little more background, like who you are, like what neighborhood you live in, why you wanted to join the committee briefly, and then your icebreaker question is going to be, how long would you last in a zombie apocalypse? So we'll have Nate do that, and then we'll go around and we'll finish with you.
Okay.
Nate, go ahead.
All right. My name is Nate Rex. I am the ranking member at this point, longest serving. Is that what that means?
Longer than Mike?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
then you are. You're the senior. Yeah.
Since 2016.
Wow.
So been here quite a while. This is and coming to the end of my second term. Lifelong cyclist, reasonably fit. I don't know if I have the mindset to live in a zombie, apocalypse. So I might kind of just give up and fade early.
Meet you.
So yeah, I mean, if it's dystopian as it looks, then what's the point? I'm a joiner.
There you go. You're a realist.
There we go.
All right, Tim. I know you just gave us some background, so how long would you last in a zombie apocalypse?
I'm not sure. I have to figure out what it is.
It's when, like, the world is taken over by zombies, but there's still, like, some normal humans left, and they're trying to survive, and the zombies, zombies, right? Yeah. So they're supposedly very slow and try to eat your brains, so what do you think?
I think I do pretty good.
You do pretty good? All right, Mary.
My name is Mary, and I walk all the time, avid walker of a dog, or like ride my bike. Lived in Boston for many years, worked at Harvard. We were part of Commuter Choice, and I see how the rest of it is with biking there. So I moved back home to Connecticut, wanted to join something in town to participate and join with that. So I'm excited to be here with that. And zombie apocalypse. I'd like to think I would do well. My passion is martial arts. I've been doing martial arts for 7 years.
There you go.
I have a blue belt in Krav Maga, and I study Muay Thai. I had a class last night. So hopefully some of my self-defense techniques would kick in when needed.
Awesome.
I want you on my team.
Yeah. Santina.
I'm Santina Duranto. I'm the Director of Health for the Health Department and Community Health. As Tim said, public health kind of goes hand in hand. So they kind of keep me around because I bring on the grant money. We focus on environmental.
And because you're fun to be with.
So much fun. I would not survive very long in a zombie apocalypse, unless I was with Mary, maybe. Maybe she can get me, but other than that, no. Okay.
All right, cool. Chris, would you like to play? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Okay. Well, I'm Chris Herman. I love to bike. I'm just a member of the public, not the committee. I've been in Fairfield for 30-something years, moved around different areas, lived on the beach a very long time. And from there, you can go just about anywhere on a bike. You can do all your errands from down there. and now I'm living in the meadows down in South Pine Creek, and it's hard.
Oh, hey, baby.
Without, did he just say something? Because I think he's my neighbor.
Oh, maybe.
It's South Pine Creek.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, no, I've just come here to find out what you do. So, yeah, I'd love to get back into more biking, but it's harder and harder these days. I guess there's a lot of hurdles for people that want to bike against pedestrians and marauding groups of kids and all that stuff. And so I want to hear what you're advocating.
Thanks, Chris.
And as far as zombie apocalypse, I'm so old, I'm sure they just spit me right out. It's not going to be very tasty.
Thank you for sharing. All right.
Can you spell your name for me, please?
Herman?
Herman. Okay, thank you.
Tanner.
So I'm going to do a longer form intro as part of my talk.
Okay, so just the zombie apocalypse then.
Yeah. I'd like to think I could do pretty well. I love, like, hiking and backpacking. I was an Eagle Scout, so
awesome.
I don't know if I came toe-to-toe with a zombie, how well I'd do, but in terms of staying away from them, I think I could do pretty well.
Cool. All right, and last but certainly not least, Jose Arome is also one of our newest members. I want to welcome him. Thanks you so much. He and I met at a safety and traffic meeting at North Stratfield School back in November. I was honored to do a presentation to the neighborhood association, and Jose is very involved with his son's school. So just want to briefly say like how you came to be interested in the committee and then the zombie apocalypse stuff.
Yeah. So I first got involved in the committee years ago, just like you came to a couple meetings because I was concerned about children's safety getting to and from school, in particular my son. We live about 3-4 blocks away from North Stratfield School, and because of that proximity, we were not on the bus, we were a walker. Doesn't make any sense to drive my kids to school, but there are no sidewalks, narrow streets, kind of a cut-through street, a lot of traffic there more than once. There were near hit incidents, and started working with the police department, talked to the previous first selectman and the selectwoman about this, have coordinated the walk to school activities in our town. I'm also the Cup Master for the troop that's there. So we do a lot of stuff with the Scouts around walking and things, and still, progress is very slow, and so that's an interest. I'm also a lifelong cyclist, hiker, camper, all that sort of stuff. And I apologize for being late. I was literally came in a couple hours ago from Albuquerque, and just getting here was
You're a trooper.
Yeah.
You're a trooper for coming.
Yeah. So fun, interesting day. Zombie apocalypse. I've watched enough movies to know that the minorities die pretty quickly, so I don't know how much I would survive. But other than that, like I said, I'm pretty handy. Stay away from the zombies. I think that seems to be like the number one thing, as opposed to like in the movies. It's like, oh, let's go fight them. Stay away.
Run away.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you all for indulging me, as always, with my icebreaker. And I don't want to take any more time away from Tanner. So Tanner is our special guest from the Norwalk Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission, and I'm going to stop talking and let him talk, and then we'll have some Q&A and dialogue.
Sure. Do you want me to try and wrap up at a certain time?
No, because I think we're fine. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll just start.
Yeah.
And you can tell me to stop.
Yep.
If we get to that point. So I'm going to move here so I'm close to the mic.
Whatever's
but also
comfortable.
so I can see everybody.
There's mics down there, too. Those little thingies, too.
Nice.
Yeah.
You guys are all checked out.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm Tanner. I am not from Connecticut. I'm a transplant. I grew up outside of Indianapolis in the suburbs, a suburb not so unlike Fairfield, except without a commuter rail station, because there's no commuter rail or trains of any kind in Indianapolis, which kind of sucks.
Carmel, by any chance?
I'm right next to Carmel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carmel, did you say? Carmel?
Yeah, we say Carmel.
Carmel,
Yeah.
okay.
The one in California is Carmel.
Oh, there you go. I was there 2 weeks ago, that's why.
Yeah, so Carmel is like, Indianapolis has a big beltway around it, right? And if people think of that as a clock face, and Carmel's at like 12 on the dial, and we're 11 on the dial. so right next to Carmel. And yeah, Carmel's been doing some cool things. Perhaps you're all familiar with it, maybe as familiar as I am, because I haven't lived in Indiana for 10 years. So my wife and I went to school in Utah, and then we moved out here for work. About 4 years ago, we relocated to Norwalk. Initially, it was because we got a job at a tech startup in Westport. We're both in applied math computer science. And we got a job doing data science at a startup. That thing kind of folded, and we ended up staying because my wife got into grad school at Yale. She's studying PhD in computer science. I got my dream job working on Google Maps at Google in New York. So we stayed in Norwalk because it's a good halfway point for us to be able to take a train. Anyway, that's my origin story. In terms of how I got into this kind of work, the suburb where I grew up was an affluent suburb of Indianapolis. Did a pretty good job of building trails. We had a rail trail, like a converted railway. It was a bike walk trail that went through kind of right through the middle of town, about 3 miles long. We lived really close to it, and also the schools were close to it. So from a young age, I had a lot of independence. I moved there when I was 8, and I moved there. I remember, having a bike, using it to have fun, to go on bike rides with my family, also to go visit my friends. I had some cousins that lived on the other side of the town, so I go visit them. And when it came to when I turned 16 and I was eligible for a driver's license, I did it kind of begrudgingly because there were activities that I needed to give my siblings and my friends rides to. So my parents there was an understanding that I get a driver's license, but I was really happy getting around on my bike because I got used to it and the conditions were good. Fast forward to during college, I had the opportunity to go live in Germany for a while, and I was mostly in the Frankfurt area, but also got to see some cities around central Germany, and that's where I was really exposed to good public transportation. That was the first kind of urbanist leaning that I had, was we can have better public transit, intercity trains, but also just a bus network that works. And I saw that in big cities like Frankfurt, but also small cities, cities smaller than Fairfield and Norwalk that had a working bus system that a lot of people relied on, and not just the poorest 10%, like it seems to be in Fairfield County, right? And especially in Frankfurt, Frankfurt's a big banking city, and I would see bankers going to work on the bus. Mm-hmm. The European Central Bank is in Frankfurt, and you'd see these bankers get off the U-Bahn, the subway, and get on a bus and connect to get to work, and that just kind of blew my mind. Totally inverted my preconceptions about who public transit is for and how it should work, and how well it can work. And also just how frequently it can come and how clean it can be inside. In hindsight, now that I've learned a lot more, that there are drawbacks to the German public transit system, but they are far fewer than the ones we have here. So that was what I noticed when I first got there. As I spent more time in Germany, I realized that the way that their cities are designed and laid out makes a huge difference as well. First of all, there's an urban growth boundary, and this is common in other European countries too, but the idea that a city will say, we're going to allow land within this radius to be developed, but after that, basically this is their version of zoning. Our version of zoning is you can only build houses that are so big. Their version of zoning is you can't build houses that are farther away from the city center, which does a huge service for walkability because it means that everything inside that radius gently densifies. You get 2-story, 3-story, 4-story apartment buildings, and you end up with, Germany's got really good bakeries. And I swear there's a bakery within walking distance of every single person in Germany, which is amazing, and the bread's really good. So the urban growth boundary is huge. Also, their approach to licensing for drivers. It's really hard to get a driver's license. It's expensive. It takes a lot of time, and you have to recertify way more frequently than we do here in the States. I think I've only had a driver's license now for 12 years. I'm 28, so I've never had to retake the test, and I think that people don't have to retake the test, right?
No.
You just never have to. So you could become really incapable of driving, and you still have a license. And only if something major happened would you get a yank, as far as I know. Which is not the case in Germany. You have to recertify every 5 or 10 years.
Wow.
And you have to prove that you're really capable of driving. And the culture there around driving is more it's a responsibility. If you're going to get in a car, you're taking on the responsibility of operating this really powerful, really potentially dangerous piece of machinery. And I think that goes hand in hand also with like their culture's respect for the car. Like people love, there's really good car enthusiasts in Germany because they have brands like Porsche, right, and BMW. People love to drive, and they treat driving as like this experience that is also like a responsibility, right? It's not something that you do out of a need. It's something that you do because you want to. And basically, when I got back from Germany, because I was there for 2 years, I got back to suburban Indianapolis, and I'm like, this whole environment is just, it's built differently, and it's built in such a way that everyone needs a car, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a car, maybe because you're in that lowest 10% and you rely on the bus, like just being in public spaces is such a, like a soul-sucking experience. You know, it's like trying to cross a street that's like 8 lanes wide, and it's all car traffic, and there's trash everywhere because like nobody actually exists in this space. They just pass through in their car, right? And like even the businesses that are like right there along the street. I mean, you see this here too, right? To a lesser extent. You know, you get to like Route 1 in some places. I just walked here from the train station, so the Route 1 here is a little bit better. I have my criticisms, but it's a lot better than, say, you know, a comparable road in Indianapolis, especially suburban Indianapolis. So anyway, I digress. I got involved in advocacy after I moved out here to Connecticut. I started commuting into New York, and because I was really interested in public transit, I started getting plugged into the kind of public transit community on Twitter, and that led me to the bike community on Twitter, which is a little spicier, but I like it a lot, and I found like protests to go to, like demonstrations to you know, demand better bike infrastructure in Manhattan. My commute involves me taking Metro North to Grand Central, and then my office is in Chelsea, so I take a city bike about 2 miles from Grand Central to Chelsea. And just like the idea that biking in such a dense place, in such a place that would support so many bike trips because all the trips are short because everything's right there, the biking is still such a poor experience in like Midtown Manhattan because it's choked with cars. It struck me as like completely unacceptable. And so that's why I started like going to protests, and also protests for like expanded subway service and like accessibility to the subway. It just so happened that my boss at Google, his partner is doing a PhD in accessibility research and like researches accessibility for the subway. So I got plugged into that as well. Started to look at this thing like more holistically. Biking, as it sounds like for many of you, it was similar, but like I've always been excited about it. I've really enjoyed biking for fun, also for transportation. But like for most of my life, going on a bike ride was like a thing I looked forward to because it was recreation, because it was fun. And it was, a side effect was that I could also use it to get around sometimes. Between like being in New York a lot and thinking about it from the perspective of like people who have different like mobility limitations than me or different economic limitations than me, that sort of opened my mind to like, you know, cycling is like a huge tool to help people be mobile. And not just cycling, but also all the things that enable walking, right? Walkability, and public transit. So I started to see it all as like a tool to enable people, instead of just recreation. So after just a few months of seeing that in Manhattan, I was like, I should just do this where I live because, you know, I'm paying taxes there and I could get more involved and I don't know if anything's going on. So long story short, I showed up to a Common Council meeting in Norwalk, not knowing anything about the Common Council or who's on it or what they do or what they're discussing that day. And it turns out that they were appointing somebody new to the Bike Walk Commission, and I was like, what's this Bike Walk Commission? I belong on that thing. Or at least I belong, you know, in those meetings. I want to see what's going on. So I started showing up to their meetings, and after about a year, there was a vacancy, and they appointed me. And then after another year, the chair stepped down, and because I'm just like really excited about this stuff, not because I was very qualified or very experienced, because like I just explained, I got into this game like pretty recently. I studied math in school. I didn't study, you know, urban planning or civil engineering or anything in that respect. I took a couple of geography classes. I love math, but that was it. Because I was really excited about it, the former chair asked me to step up and do it, and despite my lack of experience and my utter incompetence with email, I hate email, which you experienced, right? Because
I got your cell phone number now.
You got my phone number now. Yeah, texting. If you ever want to get a hold of me, just text me. I will try to answer emails if you email me. Anyway, so long story short, I'm the chair now. I've been the chair for about a year. So that's my backstory. Here's how it's set up in Norwalk. So we have, and I don't know how similar this is to Fairfield, so feel free to fill me in because I'm curious. We have what I think is called a strong mayor system, where the mayor is full-time, he's the chief executive, he's also elected, obviously. And then we have a common council, which is 15 people, 10 of them are elected by district, 5 at large. And the common council has the power to like set the budget. I get the impression the common council has more power in an absolute sense than the mayor does. But the mayor like directs the day-to-day of like the city employees, right, as the chief executive. We, as a commission, we, like you mentioned, Tim's your name, right?
Yes.
So you were around when the task force was set up. I think it was 2014. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
Maybe 2013?
might have been a little bit earlier. I think Dick Moshe was the mayor when it first got started.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I've only known really because I showed up in 2018. But yeah, it started out as a task force, which is just kind of a more ephemeral group that was set up by the mayor. And then in, I think, 2015 or 2016, we got upgraded to a commission, which means it will persist from mayoral administration to administration. We're part of the city charter, and I get the impression that's pretty similar to how you're set up. Is that right?
We are a committee, and we're not part of the city charter at the moment only because it hasn't been revised since 2006, and we weren't established until 2014. But we are in the proposed revisions that are going on the ballot in November. So hopefully we can continue in perpetuity and not serve at the pleasure of whoever the first select person.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we've got 7 members in theory. We currently have 6 members in a vacancy. Being new to advocacy and to municipal government and also to New England, it took me a while to figure out like who actually does the things, and figuring out that, for example, the city clerk is the one to contact if I have a name to suggest for the mayor to appoint. That took like a year for me to figure out. But now I know. So we've got more people in the pipeline to join our commission. But we've also recently done a good job of getting members of the public to show up to our meetings. And a big milestone that I really appreciated hitting was that our last meeting, we had more members of the public than we had commissioners.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was in part because we had a lot of missing commissioners. But we had, I think, 8 members. We had twice as many. That was a milestone. We had 8 members of the public and 4 commissioners, and then several city staff. We have representatives from different city departments that sit. They're like non-voting members of the commission. You might remember that. So that's kind of how we're set up. What do we actually do? Well, we don't have any power, right? We have a budget. We have like a little administrative budget that we use sometimes to great effect. I'll get back to that in a second. But mostly, historically, what we've done is we've advised. Hi, welcome.
Hi, Tom.
We've advised the city when they have a project. Some department, whether it's the transportation department or Public Works or the redevelopment agency, when they have a project that involves walkability or bikeability, they'll come to our meeting and present the project and listen to our feedback, and we hope that they incorporate it. And that's about all we can do, right? Yeah. We also established a bike plan, and I think we established a walkability plan before my time. And again, kind of like pitched it to the different departments, and they're like, cool, that's great. And then I don't know how much they've adopted it, right? Big inflection point, though, happened about a year and a half ago when we got a new director of transportation. The department is actually called Transportation, Mobility, and Parking, TMP. And it was created as a result of a reorg. That might have been after your time. Have you heard of TMP?
That happened after I left.
Yeah.
When I was there, was Public Works. Public Works and Health supported that commission.
Gotcha. So Public Works still exists, and Health still exists, but TMP was created and reports up through economic development. And shortly before I showed up, they got a new director of economic development, who is younger and pretty vibrant, Jess Bonashek. I don't know if you know her. And then a year and a half ago, we got a new director of transportation, Jim Travers, who we yanked from Stanford. Yes. And Jim did a lot of great stuff in Stanford, and before that, he was in New Haven. So Jim has a lot of experience in cities that are doing at least a better job. Yeah. In the case of New Haven, like a much better job, where they have a lot more people who are getting around without a car, right? Mm-hmm. Mostly because of the students in New Haven. So it's been really nice to have somebody at the head of this new department, TMP, that's responsible for transportation explicitly, that like gets it. You know, he showed up on day one and he was like, I want every street to be a complete street. Anytime we redo a street, we're going to look at the feasibility of bike facilities, and we're going to examine whether we can put in a sidewalk like that. That was like stuff that we couldn't take for granted before that, because like we would just have to like pester the city government. Anytime any of this happened, we'd have to like remind them, please, you know, put in a share, put in a striped bike lane, please. And we now know, because of some more recent research, you might have read, that sharrows actually don't improve safety or usage. And there's mixed evidence that it might actually be bad for safety, which sucks. But so we're trying to move away from that now in Norwalk, despite having a lot of sharrows on roads.
They'll wear out eventually.
Yeah, that's true. So having city employees that are like on board that get it is huge. So that's one thing that I've been trying to pursue a little bit more in my capacity as the chair. One thing we did recently, because I mentioned our budget, we have about $10,000 a year that's at our disposal. In the past, we've used it mostly for, besides the administrative stuff, like we pay somebody to take notes.
Yeah.
We have just like bought infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Like we bought a bike rack, we bought some stanchions to put in crosswalks, and that's like well and good. But I think that there's much more that we could do with that money. Like that kind of stuff can be paid for with grants. And we have, thankfully, a lot of people in Norwalk that are good at writing grants. You're the grant writer, right?
Well, for the health department.
For the health department. So you understand the value of like getting a lot of grant money, right? That's one thing that our new transportation director is really good at, is getting grant money. And actually, the bottleneck in their department right now is not money; it's like employee power.
Yeah.
Because they have written so many grants that they've been approved for.
Wow.
And they now have money that they can't use because they don't have enough people to manage all the projects.
Wow.
Even if they outsource it all. Say what?
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing that we did to try and like use our money to like leverage our money better is to try to educate our city employees. And this just barely happened. Who's heard of Jeff Speck? He wrote the book Walkable City. And actually, I have a copy of the book with me because I just ordered a bunch of used copies on Amazon so I can give them away. So if anybody wants to read the book, I will give it away. Because I'll just order 5 more. This book, actually, before I even arrived, do you remember Judd Ailey? I think he's been on the commission the whole time. Judd's great. Judd's been in Norwalk forever. He's been on the commission forever. And he ordered like a bunch of these, and he has been giving them out since way before I got there to anybody who is interested in the work that the commission does, and certainly anybody who starts attending our meetings or becomes a commissioner, he'll give them a copy. The guy who wrote this, Jeff Speck, he's trained as an architect. He's now a city planner, and he is kind of the expert on walkability. And he's the scribe. He's the one in the industry who has taken on the responsibility of writing it all down. And he wrote it all down in this book. And the book's now 10 years old. There's a 10th anniversary edition coming out in November that has 100 new pages of content.
Ooh,
so be sure to get that. In particular,
Wow.
there's a lot of stuff about bikes in there. There's a lot of stuff about autonomous vehicles.
Yeah.
Kind of a critical lens of autonomous vehicles. And there's a lot of stuff about trees. Just basically all the things where there's new research in the last 10 years.
Awesome.
So anyway, cutting to the chase, I found out about a class that Jeff teaches at Harvard every year, every summer. It's 2 days long, like an intensive where he just teaches basically he expands upon everything in that book, all the details that he's got. It's like 1,200. Long story short, I went. And I got the Bike Walk Commission to use their budget to pay for my tuition and to bring our principal engineer from DPW. You might remember her, Vanessa Valladares. She's been there. She was at Stanford before. I don't know how long she's been in Norwalk.
I'm going to give you like one more minute, and then I want to leave a little time for Q&A.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Vanessa and I went to Cambridge, went to Harvard, and went to this workshop for 2 days and learned a ton. And we come back, and just like earlier today, this was like a week ago that we went. And just today I had a phone call with Vanessa, and she was like, yeah, so I feel like we really need to do a better job of like putting the bike lanes up at the curb level. And I was like, this is so great. This is like the gold standard, right?
Yeah.
This is what they do in Copenhagen. This is what they do in Amsterdam.
They're doing it in New Haven, too.
And yeah, they just started New Haven, right, with the downtown crossing project, which is great. So, like, to hear, like, a traffic engineer from DPW say that, like, unprompted, just, like, made my day, made my week.
Dream come true.
So, I think that the money that we put into sending a city engineer to a conference on walkability is going to pay way more dividends than, you know, buying a bike rack or buying a stanchion, or even paying for a bike lane to be striped, right? Because this is, like, just changing the paradigm of the people who actually make the decisions is, I think, just, like, a huge way to affect change. And then really, last thought, and then I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
There's just so many good arguments to be made for walkability. They're in that book. The first few chapters are in that book. There's the economic argument, right? It's way cheaper for individuals that don't have to get around without a car, and it's better for city governments. If any of you aren't familiar with the Strong Towns organization, Chuck Marone, he's a traffic engineer who is now kind of a writer and a speaker who talks about, basically makes the fiscal conservative argument for walkability and for downtowns, for like densification, kind of the anti-suburban case. He's written a couple of books, one called Strong Towns and one called Confessions of a Recovering Engineer, that are both totally worth reading. How do I get there? Oh, the argument. So there's the economic argument. There's the obvious environmental argument, right? Like all of the negative environmental effects of driving cars at scale, which aren't just CO2, right? There's the asthma, there's the particulate matter, there's the noise pollution, and obviously from a public health standpoint, there's the injuries you get from the cars, right? But also there's the public health benefits. Somebody alluded to, if we can get people walking and biking more, that it's good for public health. That's been researched. There is an observed correlation in the research between, or a negative correlation rather, between biking and walking levels and obesity and diabetes. So the research has been done. There's lots and lots of good reasons to be investing in this stuff, and there's so many benefits that the town can reap by investing into walkability, into bikeability, into public transit. And so if you can just get your elected officials and your city employees to see that and to appreciate these arguments, because they are many, I think that will go a long way towards getting you to your goals. Because it works. It has merit.
Thank you, Tanner. Thank you.
You're
Thank you for that very comprehensive story of your journey to the Norwalk Bike and Ped Commission. I want to leave a few minutes for folks who might have, I know I have questions, but I don't want to be the first to ask questions. Who would like to ask a question or make a comment about Tanner's presentation?
I'll speak up. It's Mike here.
Hey, Mike.
Tanner is the brother from another mother, a map freak. I love that. You actually have my dream job of working for Google Maps, which I spend countless hours on. So you're my hero. Also into Scouts.
If you happen to be a software engineer, I'd be happy to talk to you about what it takes to Google.
No, I'm perfectly useless. I'm a marketeer. But thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate this. This is fascinating stuff. I think that it's clear you need to move to Fairfield.
Let's kidnap.
That's it.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else have any questions or comments for Tanner?
I'm curious, what have been the leverage points in the city of Norwalk for change? Obviously New Haven is probably the university, and that's a motivator because parking is sparse. Students live off campus, quite often, and getting them to campus safely and all that sort of stuff, at least from what I understand, is a motivator for the city to change. And it was where I went to college, so I'm curious what the motivators are in Norwalk for change.
Well, there's motivators, and then there's assets, right?
Sure.
And I think maybe Yale and the other universities in New Haven are both. It's probably easier to answer the assets question. Norwalk, just like most cities in New England, in this part of the country, is old, right? And so the city centers were built before cars. And some people refer to that as having good bones. The city has good bones because there's this dense downtown. And actually, I kind of observed in Fairfield that I think that kind of went awry in Fairfield, because right now we're sitting on like the oldest center of town, and yet the development around the oldest center of town is really low slung, and it's very leafy, which is great, right? If you read, I could go on about street trees are great, but like the walkability was kind of destroyed because there's nothing within walking distance of here. I mean, it's kind of in walking distance, right? Actually, the reason that I wasn't earlier is because I tried to cut through a bunch of parking lots, and there's fences everywhere. You just can't cut through anywhere. You have to go around which center.
Sorry about that.
Anyway, so there's the old dense downtown. Obviously, Fairfield has this. There's the rail line, right? Like this is the busiest commuter rail line in North America, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Certainly in the United States. So like having fast, frequent transit service, I mean, at least frequent during peak times, to New Haven, to New York especially, that's a huge asset. And then in Norwalk we have a little bit of a more recent development. We have the Norwalk River Valley Trail, which is a vision more than it's a trail, but it does have sections of trail that are done. And the city, one thing the city's done a great job of is adopting the NRVT as a vision within the city limits. The ultimate vision is to go all the way to Danbury. But the city of Norwalk has adopted the NRVT vision corridor through the Norwalk city limits as, kind of their own project. And so they are trying to make it happen, within the city government, within the transportation department, instead of just being an advocate-driven project, which is great. And we're going to get another section that's opening just in a few months.
Oh, exciting.
And it's opening incrementally, which is, how it has to happen.
Sure.
So those are the big assets that I see. Norwalk, one of the struggles, which you didn't ask about, but it kind of fits in. One of the hurdles that we have is that Norwalk is kind of polycentric. It's kind of decentralized. Norwalk was originally a few different cities and towns. There's South Norwalk and proper Norwalk that I think officially merged in like the 1890s. Rowayton is like their own thing. That's the Darien of Norwalk. And then we have like East Norwalk, which has like the beach feel, and they have a pretty robust neighborhood association that's pretty anti-development, which kind of sucks. And then we have like Office Park up by Merritt 7, which is another like hub. It's another node, and there's a train station there too, but it's on the Danbury branch, so it's slow and it's not electrified, and it's single track, so there's not very frequent service. But like we have all these different centers, and one thing that I would really like the city to focus more on is how to connect those centers, especially public transit. But another hurdle that we have, and I would be curious to know if this is true in Fairfield, our transit district is not part of the statewide transit district, CT Transit. We have our own Norwalk Transit District, which is, as far as I understand, like the routes are really outdated. They haven't been updated in like decades. They run as little service as possible to be in compliance with like whatever grant they got to fund their service. There's not very much oversight from the city. I think most of their funding comes from the state, from the federal government, and so like there is like an open channel of communication there, but I've never observed it, and I don't see any effects of it. Like the transit service still doesn't serve anybody except for basically that lowest 10%, the people who live in public housing basically.
Yeah.
Which I think it's great that it's there for them, but like it could be so much more.
Absolutely.
So the motivators though, I'll try to answer. Norwalk, I guess because of these assets, there are people, younger people especially, moving there like me. I kind of was ahead of the curve by about 2 years because during the pandemic, a bunch of people moved up from New York, from Brooklyn, and some like old-time Norwalkers are kind of salty about that because there's all these new people that are driving up housing prices, which is true, right? Because we're not building enough housing for the people who want to live there. And a quick aside, if you haven't realized that transportation policy and housing policy are really just the same thing, you should read what book does that well? I don't know. Read Walkable City. It's in there, but it's true. So yeah, a motivator is that we have a lot of young professionals, not college students, right? Because there's only Norwalk Community College, but like there's a lot of employment centers, whether that's like in Norwalk at Merritt 7 or in Sanford or even in Darien and Fairfield in Wilton. There's a lot of people like my age that or like early 30s that are coming to Norwalk and that want more of this. So that's a big motivator. Great. Oh, and then also like the fact that any new development, which is going to happen because there's such demand for it in the market, that's going to bring more traffic. People are convinced that it will, because if all the people who move here bring their cars and drive their cars everywhere, they absolutely will cause more traffic. And so I think certain people are starting to see that like there's an alternative, which is that we have people come without as many cars, and that we make it easier for people to get around without the car, especially the new people, and that will mitigate that downside, that fear about new development. But I think one thing we need to do in the coming months and years is send that message better.
Yeah.
Help people understand that.
Tim and then Tom, because I think Tim had a question.
Alphabetical.
And we're going to wrap up in like 2 minutes so that we can get on with the rest of our agenda.
I recall when I was in Norwalk, the challenges we had dealing with the state DOT on their roads. And has that changed? You know, they, at the top of DOT, they were talking about making roads more usable for all different modes of transportation.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like the message never got down to the engineers who were on the ground.
Yep.
And they did several projects along Route 1 that were just confounding.
Yep, just dumb.
Has that changed?
I don't have a great window into that because, like, I'm not the one who works with DOT.
Yes.
I interface with, like, TMP, and then TMP interfaces with DOT. But from what I understand, there is kind of a sea change going on at DOT right now because a bunch of the old guard is retiring. I think that there was some early out package that they offered, like all across state government. And so you're getting a lot of those people retiring, and that's leading to kind of two problems, half and half. Half of the problem is that there's a labor shortage because all these people are retiring. The other half is that the people that they're managing to hire are younger, and they tend to be more progressive when it comes to transportation. They understand, like, the value of having complete streets, of building other forms of transportation than just highways. And so that is starting to happen, but it needs to happen more. DOT needs to recruit more people, more younger people. It's hard because, it's moving to Hartford is, like, not generally seen as the sexiest thing for young people, especially like the state DOT headquarters. It's such a microcosm of like how the agency used to be and kind of still is, which is that it's on like a 4-lane highway that is inaccessible via walking and only barely accessible via transit, and it's surrounded by this huge parking lot. Like I joke sometimes on Twitter, but I think that there's some truth to it. That if they just moved the headquarters to like downtown Hartford, right by the train station, that would do a lot to attract the kind of talent they want to attract.
Totally.
But to answer your question, I think that it's in progress. It's getting better.
I think it's getting better too, and we'll talk a little more about that.
I know I'm long-winded. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Tom, no, I want you to have an opportunity, please. It's okay.
I also want you to have an opportunity.
Yeah.
In terms of, have you seen anything? I'm thinking about Stamford as it's really sort of the microcosm of what you were talking about. You know, it's an old Connecticut city, but it's been building up like crazy. South of the highway, there's just one apartment building after another going up. They have a downtown business and restaurants and blah, 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 blah. Are they doing anything? Have you seen that would help Norwalk, help us?
That's a great question. The best thing that Stanford's done to us is Jim Travers. The best thing that I see going on in Stanford right now is that they have a good advocacy group, People Friendly Stanford, and they are distinct from our group and from your group in that they're not a governmental agency, which, you know, means that there's certain things they can't do, but there's a lot of things that they have kind of more flexibility to do. For example, they publish, every time there's an election, they rate all the candidates according to their values, right? Biking, walking, and housing policy. And that, from what I understand, in this last election cycle, that got a lot of attention. Like, that was picked up by all the news outlets. And a lot of candidates campaigned on, like, the score that they got from People Friendly Stanford, which is huge. And, like, we can't do that, right? Because we're, like, part of city government. But I would love to see an organization in Norwalk, and maybe I just need to be the one who starts it.
Careful what you wish for.
Somebody ought to do that in Norwalk and in Fairfield.
Well, thank you. All right. Thank you, Tanner. Awesome. All right. I'm going to thank you all for your patience, who have been waiting to speak as well. We're going to go right into the Town of Fairfield updates. Before you start, Santina, Bill and Mega could not be here. Bill is on vacation, and Mega is studying for her professional engineering license, which she's taking next week. And so take it away, Santina.
Okay, so nothing too new, but for, we're currently in the year through the block grant. It ends September 30th. We have not expended any funds except for that $3,400 for the fence. I did have a quick conversation with Bill, and I think we may be going towards the South Pine Creek sidewalk area. Last time I talked to him, he was just gonna try to price it out with the DPW to make sure that whatever funds we had left over could do it. Our thought was Birdcraft at least has a sidewalk on one side of the road, where South Pine Creek doesn't. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're leaning towards, but we have to price it all out.
Okay.
And then for year 4, so again, the Preventive Health Block Grant was extended another year.
Oh, it was, okay.
I submitted the budget for that. I just wrote it generic for bike and sidewalk improvement so that we can kind of decide where we want to go. And Nate, I'll get you the exact amount, but it was actually a little bit more than I thought. So it was over $16,000.
Oh, good.
But I do need to reach out to the state because they did tell us they were going to give us an additional $7,000 for the Greenfield Hill signage once that bike route is approved. So I'll reach out to them to make sure that they cannot forget about it. And then our bike share bikes are still kind of just hanging around. I believe Sam, my director, did reach out to Fairfield GU. I just have to follow up and see what's happening there.
Thank you, Santina.
No
That's
problem.
exciting. I'm so glad there's going to be a year 4.
Yeah.
Gives us so many more opportunities to do stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So like I said, Bill and Megan couldn't be here. So we're going to table their update until July. Police also, we are still hopefully going to have a police representative coming in the fall once they're through their grant round, and they are currently at only 50% staffing for their traffic unit, and so they have. I should back up for Jose and Tim. The police are currently going through a grant project that requires them to have a Thursday night meeting that they cannot get out of, and so they can't send a representative. And they're also down, the traffic unit's down 50% staff. So Hector, the head of the traffic unit, has assured me that when the grant round is over and when they are replenished their staff, they will be sending someone. There has been a discussion I've been a part of this week with the police and the first select woman and Jill Vergara from the RTM and a few other folks regarding the electric scooter program. And so just briefly, there's been a couple of complaints about folks riding the scooters on the sidewalk, which you are not supposed to do. It says clearly there's a tag right on it that says, do not ride this on the sidewalk. And so I said, well, where are they doing this? Because if they're doing it like on the post road, it's most likely because they don't feel safe trying to compete with the vehicular traffic. And I was told no. Some witnesses have said they've been on the quieter side streets where it's just like young people horsing around on the sidewalks on these things. And I said, well, that upsets me because they're going to ruin a really great thing. We have a pilot e-scooter program, Tim.
I noticed. I almost decided to take the scooter from the train station here.
We should take them to the restaurant if we can find them. So
they're on Google Maps.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll find them.
Like real-time locations of the scooters on Maps.
So I reached out to Holly Parker, who Mary and I both know, who's a micromobility specialist in the state of Connecticut. She used to work for Yale University, and she right now works for a consulting group.
And Harvard.
And Harvard. That's right, and Harvard. And I said, Holly, there's a situation. I'm afraid that these young people with their undeveloped brains are going to ruin this for everyone else by riding recklessly on the sidewalk with these things. What do we do? And she told me that Bird provides sidewalk control, programmable controls in other cities where, similar to the way our scooters are now designed, you can only go within a certain radius. And when you leave that radius, it turns off. There is technology that allows for sidewalk detection that does the same thing.
It's called a geofence.
Geofencing. Awesome. So she said we have to very bluntly approach the Bird folks and say, we want access to this technology, and what is that going to take? She said the other thing to do is to reduce the speed limit on them from 15 miles to 12, which makes them a little less sexy, a little slower, and has been demonstrated to reduce like horseplay on these things. They're not as fun.
Does it also just drive down like overall usage? I would guess it does.
I don't know. That's a good question. But those are two.
Trade-off, right?
Yeah, it's a trade-off. Those are two things we're exploring to rectify that situation, because I don't want, this is a pilot, and I don't want a few bad apples ruining something that could be overall positive. And overall positive, Chief Calamara said he makes a point when he's out in public and when he sees people using the e-scooters to talked to them. He's talked to the beach residents who overall, don't feel it's a negative impact to them at all. So we're working on it. If anybody would like to see that conversation thread, I'd be glad to forward it to you. I can just share it with the group, and you can have it.
Sorry.
Good.
Just real quick, has anyone talked about, or complained about like the rebalancing or where scooters have been left? Because I know that was a concern, a few committee members ago about scooters.
Yes, Chief Calamaris said he has spoken to Bird about increasing the frequency of pickup and recharge. In some communities, they do it nightly, and the Bird language for Fairfield just says regularly, and so we need to put some more specific parameters around what that means. But those who've had it left in their yard, for the most part, I'm not saying there haven't been any complaints, haven't really cared. So that's all I know. Mary, are you on the phone? Okay, Mary is not here from Sustainable Fairfield, so we're going to table her.
Sorry.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mary, if you could give us just a brief 2 or 3 minute update. I'm sorry to have to cut into your time. Just a quick update, and go ahead.
Let's see. Well, we actually are starting our tree planting for fall already.
Oh, great.
We have, I think, I think we're closing in on about 70 prospects of people, so that's probably more than that of trees. And so that's really exciting news. And we planted, I think, probably about 150 trees this spring. So we're very efficiently getting things going. And in terms of Sustainable Fairfield, we're working on getting our climate leader certification through Sustainable CT. So that's also very exciting news. And I don't think that there's anything related to biped for that particular certification. So there's that. And just my exciting news related to biped, I am going down to Easton, Maryland and biking 30 miles on Saturday for a muscular dystrophy charity ride. So that's my biped news.
Nice.
Oh, well, I hope you have wonderful weather and that it's a fun ride.
Yeah, all 4 of us, so we're all doing it. So that's the family event. So that's my biped update. And then the Rise Up group meeting we went to?
Oh yes, Rise Up. Yep.
So that was pretty exciting. I'm hoping that we'll get to do that.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in my chair update in a little bit. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Mary. All right, so we're going to move into our committee updates and business. And everybody, if you wouldn't mind trying to keep it brief, we're going to start with the Infrastructure and Design Working Group, which our primary project right now is the Greenfield Hill Bike Route. So Nate, please take it away.
Okay, I submitted the updated map and cue sheet for the route to, what's her name?
Allison?
Allison, who was CC'd on Karen's email. And I have not heard back from her, so I hope that landed in the people's mailbox. I may follow up with her and just double check that she
that'd be good.
got it, and that everyone has a chance to see it so that the commission can actually go and visualize what the route looks like with the turn-by-turn directions. That's it. And so we have a meeting on, it's funny, her letter said July 6th, but it's actually July 13th.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that was what we were told last time.
July 13th. Oh, I'm not on the calendar.
I have on my calendar it's July 13th.
Yeah, it's always the second Wednesday. You're right.
Second Wednesday.
So let's double check that. So if anyone would like to attend the police commission meetings are open to the public. Any resident of Fairfield can attend, and our Greenfield Hill Bike Route will be on the agenda either July 6th or July 13th. We'll confirm that, and I can send that out. I will be there with Nate in support of the project, but if you're looking for something to do on a Wednesday at 4.
So do they have to approve it?
They do.
They do.
I know.
Is this just a virtual bike route? Look, what is it?
Signage. It's going to be
Signage.
signage.
Okay. Oh, it did say,
And
okay.
potential, I mean, again, as we discussed earlier, Sharrows are sort of maybe going out of fashion at this point, but there maybe still some viability in a couple of spaces that are heavily trafficked. Maybe it helps draw attention to the fact that the roads are actually used by more than just cars. So, so that's what the plan is.
Yeah, that's the structure we are working with for now. So the police commission, they are appointees of the first select person. Some are retired police officers, some are not.
You know, you talking about the Sharrows and the bike routes, and I was coming back, I had to get off 95 because it was so horrible, coming along Oldfield, and there's a whole stretch along Oldfield that says bike route, there's bike route signs, and they have, the white
fog line,
and then you get to down by, it's just as wide once you cross, by Reef Road and up to the town hall, and it disappears. And, the road that stays that width all the way to South Benson. And why do the fog lines just disappear, which makes motorists think, there's going to be something, a kid on a bike or a jogger or a lady with a stroller in it. Why do they just...
Well, Tom, one of the things I'm so grateful that we have Tim on the committee now is one of the things I'd like to do is better coordinate communication between our committee and DPW, who makes these paving and marking decisions when they mill and pave. Tim was telling me when I had a welcome conversation with him on the phone about how, and Tanner, you could probably speak to this briefly, there is more of an open dialogue about, when the city of Norwalk is going to pave a local road, mill and pave a local road, a discussion between you and the commission, them and the commission about, is there an opportunity to do some complete streets markings? We don't have that.
Well, the short story is it's tough.
It's public information, their paving schedule for the year. So anybody can go on the website and see what streets are going to be paved. And it may have changed, but sort of the agreement we had with Public Works was when that came out, they'd sit down with the group, and if any of the roads were potential targets for bike lanes, they'd work with us to try and get them in.
Yeah, that did happen until the new TMP administration, when TMP was like, we'll just do that for you.
Oh, okay.
Which is great. It hasn't quite happened, so we're still trying to get it to happen. But
it depends on Public Works.
It's
whether they're friendly towards it or not. And it with changes in administration, people change.
Yeah. Well,
Terry was pretty good about pushing.
It's my understanding. John Marsilio is our current DPW director, but interim, and that we should be getting a new one in the next few months, and I want to get that person here talking to us.
Yeah.
Is my goal. So, because I think that would go far if we have a regular dialogue with department.
A potential pitfall there is that although the paving schedule is published, it's not sacred. It's not necessarily followed, right? That's just a plan. It's just a schedule, and so it often gets changed or doesn't get followed, and roads kicked to the next year all the time.
Good to know. All right. Well, thank you, Nate. Events and education. Mike, do you have any updates for us?
No, is the quick answer. I did, following up our bike rodeo in May, did solicit many of the stakeholders for input and best practices with the visualization that we would repeat the event next year.
Great, thank you. I think that it was a huge success this year, and those who were able to attend had a good time, and definitely want to do it again.
It was great. Helped the weather was great.
It helped, yeah. You paid off Mother Nature that day for sure. Relationships and policy, Mary and Tom, any updates for us with the universities?
We hadn't heard back, and we were waiting to get contact names. I don't think we received those from them.
Yeah, I think, it's summer, students are gone, they start going into cocoon, but I thought we were not talking, whatever.
Yeah.
I thought at one point, maybe I'm just hallucinating, I thought you had said you were going to contact Gallinelli.
Oh gosh, I probably forgot. I'm so sorry.
Yep. Get some contact points.
Yes, contact names.
Out of him.
And I think Mary on the line, wasn't?
Yes, and I don't know if Mary Hogue, are you still there?
Right,
You mentioned having some contacts at Fairfield U and Sacred Heart that you could share with us?
For what purpose?
For the universities, for sustainability. You mentioned at the last meeting that you had some contacts you could share with us so that we could have a dialogue with them about bikeability and walkability?
Yes, sorry. I'll send them to you, Sarah?
Yes, that would be great. And I apologize that I forgot about Keith. So.
Okay.
So should I just send them
Thank
the
you.
email I had sent the professor originally, or our mission statement, or how do what? I had sent an introductory email to the professor that you know. I could resend that, or I could send something else and tell them what we're looking to do, or.
Yeah, let's just start with what you already wrote.
Yeah, okay, because I had a contact at Fairfield U too, but, you know, she was so like, well, I could point you in this direction, or that direction, or this direction, and then we had this contact at this professor and stuff. So.
Let's get the contact information from Mary, and I will get you Keith's contact, and I have Keith's cell phone number too, so.
Once we have that, we'll send that out.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, just an idea, but, you know, whether it's just trying to get influence with selectmen and the DPW people, et cetera. We had invited the RTM folks, who knows who showed or not.
For the bike rodeo, yeah.
You know, and maybe they're going to be going from 40 to 30, who knows, but, you know, maybe if we could get them, maybe start with Vergara or McDermott or whatever.
I think Zezima's the majority leader, right? Liz Zezima?
McDermott's the moderator, so he's the number one dog, and Vergara, I think, is like the party leader.
No, I think Zezima's the majority leader.
Okay.
Yeah, I think currently.
But McDermott's the moderator.
Okay.
But in any event, you know, maybe we get you know, with these guys and say, hey, this is a resource, and you know, if you want your neighborhood to have bike lanes or whatever, or better crosswalks and some, you know, whatever, you know, if they start pounding and, you know, squeaky wheels get the grease. So if all 3 or 4 RTM people from district, you know, are contacting somebody saying, hey, you know, how come we can't get this?
Would you like to invite them to our July meeting? We don't have a guest lined up for that. Or if they can't come for that, then let's get them on the calendar for later in the year.
Yeah, I'll contact McDermott. I know him and see if, you know, he wants to come. He may, you know, maybe he'll just come and or he'll bring a posse or whatever. But every other place, you know, that's the city council, and you go to them to get stuff done. You go to them about your snow not getting plowed and stuff. But in Fairfield, they come and they knock on your door, and you elect them, and 2 years later they come and they knock on your door.
Yeah, and Jill Vergara, actually, it was one of the ones who initiated this conversation around the e-scooters, and I mentioned the need for bicycle infrastructure, and she said she's supportive of that. So let's run with that. And I have an article I can share with you guys about how there was a study done that elected leaders who support bicycle infrastructure have historically been reelected more often than those that don't. So.
I can stand for that.
So I can send you that article.
Just a note too, I think it would be good to have the contacts at Fairfield U and Sacred Heart, because you had sent out an email in addition to this about programs, kickbacks, or programs for colleges that have, what was it? I'm remembering, right? Fairfield U and Sacred Heart were not part of this. Programs for incentives for students.
Oh, for busing or?
Busing, yeah.
Oh, the busing thing, yeah.
Sorry. So it'd be good to get it in with them, because that's something else we can talk about, I think.
Yes, that absolutely. Yeah, all right, I will get on that.
So these are the only college kids you never see on bicycles.
Yeah, you know.
They're in Daddy's $65,000 Jeep.
Yeah, I ride down by the beach.
Yeah.
I never see kids on bikes.
Nope.
Sacred Heart campus is more spread out than Fairfield.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't.
I think if there's better bike lanes and different things like that, it's safety.
If there were bike lanes, period.
Yeah.
It would encourage.
I mean, you go down Reef Road on a bike.
Oh, I know. I know.
All right, so I apologize. I will get you that stuff, and I will follow up with Mary Hogue about the contacts as well.
So July 21 is the next meeting.
Yes, the third Thursday. Yeah, and if they can't come to that, we'll get them to one later.
Then
Not
I'll
August.
start saying it's election time,
Yeah.
Whatever, I'll ask.
There's like 38 of them. Let's get some of them here. However many they can.
Cool.
Thank you. All right. Moving on, those on the committee, I sent a Google document of public comments and feedback that we've received since I became chair in August. If you had an opportunity to review that, would anybody like to say anything about that, discuss any of them? Positive?
Comments were positive, for the most part.
They were positive, and I also supportive of our efforts, and also desperately seeking better infrastructure for walkability and bikeability, which I thought is important for our town decision makers to be aware of.
Right.
Yeah.
These guys.
Yeah, these guys. Sorry, my son's like, Mom, can you pick me up in like 20 minutes? No. Text your dad.
We got a bird scooter.
Right, there you go.
He's only 11, he can't. So any specific comment that jumped out at anybody that they'd like to share? No? Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Look at that. See, we caught up. It's a light agenda this month. And do my chair updates. I first want to start by saying that I'm not remiss in recognizing that we have 2 new committee members who need to become part of working groups. And in my conversation with Jose and with Tim, Jose expressed that he would like to join the Relationships and Policy working group, and Tim would like to join the Infrastructure group. So we will get you up to speed with that. I'll send out an updated list of who's in what. And so I'm just, so that we don't have 4 people in the infrastructure and design group, I'm just going to kind of float. I'm very supportive of events of education. It's not my passion, but I'm happy to help out there for the time being. Other updates. As you may remember from the last meeting, we were invited to participate as volunteers in the Fairfield Beach 5K at the beginning of the month, and our wonderful Tom Keene was a volunteer that day. Alyssa Israel said he was awesome.
We had a good time.
She said he was such a huge help, and that helps us raise a little money. And actually, Alyssa was so impressed with you, and she's so happy with all of our efforts to try to move things along, that she's going to make a donation through the Fairfield Beach Residents Association to our committee for more than $50. I don't know the amount yet, but so that's very exciting, and that'll give Steve, our finance guy, something to do. He'll have to process that money. As you might have noticed, we didn't have the charge discussion this month. That's because Steve couldn't be here, and that's really his baby. We're looking at revising our charge. So we will, I hope, have that in July and start wrapping that up. Asphalt art, as Mary Hogue mentioned, I've been talking extensively to Mega Jane, one of the town engineers, and some other folks, trying an asphalt art program. Is everyone here familiar with asphalt art? I'm going to share an article with you, Tim. So it's when you paint sections of the street to deter cars from driving over it. It's to shrink intersections to make the crossing for pedestrians smaller. It's to force a more 90-degree angle turn for the cars, which makes them go slower, that kind of thing. And Bloomberg Philanthropies issued a report where it's been demonstrated that in locations where they've installed asphalt art, they've seen a reduction in speeds and a reduction in vehicular crashes and pedestrian injuries and fatalities. And so I've been pushing Bill Hurley for about 4 or 5 years now to try this, and he has finally acquiesced and said that we can do a pilot program starting with 4 to 6 locations throughout the town. And so I'll send you all a summary of what I've shared with him. There is an organization in the state called Rise Up, which has a branch called CT Murals, which does public murals throughout the state and has done asphalt art projects. They are amazing. They have their own insurance for when they do these projects. They help you cut through the red tape, the bureaucratic red tape. They help you fundraise. They do the fundraising for you in exchange for taking 15 to 20% of what they raise as a fee. They help you. They have a list of like 40 artists within the state that they work with. They help you coordinate volunteers, and so I had a meeting with, and Mary Hogue and Sustainable Fairfield is also very interested in this program. And so we had a meeting on Monday with Matt Conway from CT Murals to talk about it. And currently, Mega's biggest concern is maintenance. The paint, if just left as it is, will last about a year if you let cars drive over it. If you put bollards around it, everybody know what a bollard is? If you put bollards around it, it can last 2 to 3 years. It's not meant to be a permanent solution. It's meant to demonstrate what is possible, like if you were to take that same configuration and replace it with hardscaping, a curb, grass, what have you. But it's an excellent opportunity to test before you invest. So you can put out this design and say, well, you know, actually the way that we did the turning radii is a little too tight or a little too loose, and we can, you know, tweak it, or maybe whatever. So moving forward with that.
Can I comment on that, sir?
Yeah.
So first of all, we did this in Norwalk.
Oh, the crosswalk. Yeah, the rainbow crosswalk.
We've got a rainbow crosswalk.
Yeah.
Outside of Matthews Park. Yeah. It's in Matthews Park on, what is that, West Avenue?
Yeah. I had the Pride event last
Yeah.
week. That was probably right.
They did it for Pride last June. Yeah.
This I think is less about like a temporary intervention to kind of like pilot a neck down on the street, but it's effective for that, right?
Yep.
And you're talking about like it's good for testing. I think it's even more powerful to just like shift the paradigm, right? For people to realize that like taking space away from cars and giving it to pedestrians or whatever is like doesn't cause the world to end.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't cause traffic to become a nightmare.
Yeah.
And it actually makes the place more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So just like allowing people to see the vision of making it permanent is,
yeah.
I think, the biggest advantage of it.
Yeah, it's you know, we believe it when we see it. It's just human nature for so much of this, especially with change. And so this is a way to gently ease that into the collective mindset. So also, if you're familiar with the Stratfield Village Association up in the Stratfield neighborhood, they have completed their fundraising for their Stratfield Four Corners project, but they have some surplus money, and they're going to continue to raise money for projects for that neighborhood. So any asphalt art we do in that neighborhood, they will contribute funds to it. So it's also, that type of project is also eligible for Sustainable Connecticut funding as well. Hey.
Are the designs generally geometric or what? Yes. Okay, because they're not. Okay, because you always see articles in the media about somebody did a mural on the side of a building, and then the town went crazy because the artist put some controversial thing up, and yada yada.
Their wall murals are often socially conscious, but their asphalt art is not, for a number of reasons, but primarily because you're walking, the wear and tear, but also if you are going to try to maintain it for as long as possible, and you're getting volunteers to do that, you want it to be a simple design where they can just repaint a triangle, like, that it doesn't take expertise.
So does the town have to approve what the visual is, or is there a?
Yeah, I mean, it should be some sort of simple geometric, colorful thing, but we are just at the beginnings of this, and I'll share like the whole dialogue with everybody, but we're just at the start.
How does that include biking people? Like, you're making cars go a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. But where do the bikers go then when they encounter these geometrics?
It depends on the design. Yeah, it depends on, you know, are you at an intersection? Is this? Yeah, it really, with the bikes, they can just go over it.
Yeah, that's my mantra. You know that. I'm going
to get you to change your perspective, Chris.
I walk everywhere. I have to jump aside from kids on sidewalks.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you. I'm sorry that that's a challenge, yeah. Okay, so that's where we are with asphalt art. So I attended, has anybody heard of the Smart Growth America Complete Streets Leadership Program? I shared an article about it. I attended their webinar yesterday. This is a program where state DOTs can apply to become part of this leadership program. It's a one-year program where they work with Smart Growth America. It's a national nonprofit organization based out of DC to receive complete streets training. And what they do with those who are selected is they work with the DOTs to select 3 jurisdictions to do demonstration projects and for safety in complete streets. And I have reached out. It seems like it's free. It doesn't cost anything to the states that participate. And you get these demonstration projects, like a test before you invest, asphalt art, bollards, whatever you want to do, with professionals who are trained to help guide you on how to do this. So I did reach out to Garrett Eucalito, the Deputy Director of the Department of Transportation, who I just met with a couple weeks ago. So he's my new friend, and I asked him if he would be, I strongly encouraged him to pursue that. And would I love it to be in Fairfield? Sure, but I just want them to start getting into that mindset of doing these types of projects anywhere in the state. So if you know anybody at DOT who you can twist arms and say, please apply for this, the application is due July 29th.
Sounds like you know Garrett Eucalito. I do. Better than anybody else.
So that's that. It looks like our Fairfield Fire Chief and Deputy Fire Chief are hoping to come to our September meeting as our guests, which is very exciting. I've been talking to them over email, and they're very supportive of our work. So I'd like to get them here talking about how we can work together in service to our community. And as I've mentioned before, my friend Doug House-Layden from New Haven is going to come in August as our guest.
That's great.
Doug's the man.
And Doug actually came to the seminar at Harvard with Jeff Speck. Doug came with him.
That's awesome.
Doug's great.
He's great. You guys are going to love him. He's a character. And I think I shared with you all via email that the League of American Cyclists has this rating program that they're doing. They're rating cities all over the country who request to be rated on their bikeability. And I have requested that they rate us in 2023. Be prepared for a low grade. But that's a starting point, and what gets measured gets changed. So I think it will help us bolster our argument for better infrastructure.
Embarrassment's a motivator.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
To help you feel any better, there's another organization that does this, 2 People for Bikes.
Yes.
And when they rate a city out of 100, they just released their most recent ratings. Norwalk got a 10 out of 100.
Oh, that's what it is. People for Bikes. Sorry.
They both do.
Oh, they both do it. Oh, okay. Yeah.
They have different schemas.
Your link was People for Bikes.
It was People for Bikes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I get them confused in my head. Yeah, it is People for Bikes.
But like, there's nowhere to go but up.
You got a 10, and you have
10 out of 100.
Oh man, and you guys have like bike lanes.
Well, it's because they really don't weight bike lanes unless they are protected bike lanes.
Good for them. Good for them.
Which, is the right way to do it, but it means the Norwalk doesn't score high.
Well, I hope it's a good motivator to keep going.
Certainly. I hope it motivates people in the city government.
Oh, definitely. Finally, I don't know, well, Santino, I know you know, Julie DeMarco at the Human and Social Services Department. Turns out she's my neighbor, not my mayor. Jeez. Talk much. Julie is my neighbor, and I happened to be out for a walk with my husband the other night, and she just started chatting with us, and so we get to talking, and I mentioned that I'm on the committee, and she mentioned that they're getting started with the Committee on Disabilities for the town, which is looking at how the town is supporting or not supporting people with physical and intellectual disabilities. And a huge component of that is transportation, because if you are not capable or not comfortable driving a car, it limits your autonomy and your ability to get around in this town, especially because our public transit system is not robust. So anyway, they are just getting started, but Julie seems really cool. She's really excited to work with us, and she invited us to come to her meetings, and they would love to come to our meetings at some point so we can talk about how we could work together, because there's a large number of people who live in this town with disabilities, ranging from physical, intellectual, and invisible, that aren't visible to us when they're just moving around, who have a right to, they have a voice, and we have to be supporting them in this. If we're making things better for them, we're making things better for everybody. So that's my my thing. Does anybody have any comments about what I just said or questions?
I have a question on those scooters.
Yeah.
You said kids are doing things they shouldn't be doing. So 2 questions. One, is there a minimum age?
Yes.
So are they at that age or are they underage?
These whippersnappers are circumventing the system. But they...
Part of that could be because it's new. They're just going to do it for a while and get over it. If everybody goes crazy, it's just going to make it worse. They're going to do it even more.
Yes.
I mean, I bet your kids turn 16 every year, though.
It's 18, actually, for our scooter program.
Your kids turn 18 every year.
So they supposedly you're supposed to scan a picture of your driver's license to confirm your age in order to be, somehow I don't know.
Just borrow a driver's license.
Borrowed, I don't know, yeah, but I guess this whole conversation started with somebody in town is a driving instructor, and he saw some kids who clearly looked under 18 down by the beach riding on scooters, and he stopped and he was like, hey, how old are you? And this kid was probably like, I'm 15, or however old he was. And he's like, how did you get,
But was it the Bird scooter, or was it their own scooter?
It was Bird.
Okay.
It was Bird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let the kids have their own scooters. Yeah.
Totally. We can't control that. But
Bird.
but so I said, I suggested that they reach out to Bird and ask them to figure out how to prevent that from happening.
Well, like nobody ever borrowed their brother's driver's license.
I know.
Go buy beer.
I know.
And now digitally, every kid in the town has a copy of one guy's driver's license.
Oh, that's the move.
That's the move, yeah. So they got to figure that out, right? Like the Netflix thing. Like now you can't let out your password to everybody the way you used to be able to. So that's unfortunately. Although when my cousin was 20, he was in college down in Florida, and he went out drinking one Friday night, and then was going to take a e-scooter home. Landed on his face, broke his jaw, had to have it wired for 6 weeks. He was a skinny guy, and he lost like 15 pounds from the liquid diet. So.
Had he had a lot to drink?
He had a lot to drink, which is dumb.
Probably part of it.
Yeah, but when you're that age, like,
That's true.
Right.
you do dumb things.
It was pre-anesthetized.
Yeah, there you go. It probably didn't hurt as bad. So we have just 1 minute left. Do we have any quick comments from the public? Chris, anything you'd like to say?
No, I'm heartened by the fact that you're working so hard and envisioning bike lanes and all this stuff. And I just, but we have what we have. And how to make what we have work is my biggest concern. And because I think twice about what time it is, can I go out safely and ride my bike without encountering, marauding kids on bicycles on sidewalks. That's my bugaboo. I'm sorry, I'm being, and you're not having it. And you're saying, that's what kids do. Well, damn.
Well, nobody jumps into shark-infested waters, and nobody wants to jump into traffic with their bicycle.
The kids, the police said they were shorthanded.
Yeah.
And I walk every day. I don't ride anymore. I walk everywhere. And I could document for the police exactly when stuff happens and where, and at what time of day when it occurs. And it's right after school. So nobody should be on the bike lane at 2:30 in the afternoon.
I'm doing a little bit of work.
Hop on a bike.
It's hard when well, thank you. We're going to keep working, and real change happens one step at a time, and we're going to do it incrementally and try to get forward. Before I forget, Tom, do you want to do minutes in July or August?
Well, let me check my horoscope. July, I guess.
July.
Why not?
All right,
Yeah,
awesome.
you're
So Steve will get August. I decided since you were the only two hadn't won the raffle
I
yet.
think we hadn't won yet.
You're good. So you'll do July or August?
Sure. July.
July. Steve will do August, and then we will have Tim and Jose do September and October, and then we're going to start putting names in a hat again. All right.
Or someone will step up and.
Or someone will step
the
up.
secretary.
Or we'll get a budget and we'll get to pay somebody like the Norwalk Commission gets to do, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Do I have a motion to adjourn? We'll give it to the new guy, Tim. Second.
Second.
We'll give it to Mary. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All right, meeting.
Approved.
Approved, thank you, Mike. Meeting adjourned at 7:32.